Are you fascinated by the paranormal and want to hear about encounters that have happened to real-life people in real-life places? Do you need a drink to calm those nerves after hearing some scary stories?
You're listening to Booze and Bourbon.
Well, we invite you to grab a drink, whether it's a coffee or something with a little bit more spirit in it. Grab a blanket, snuggle in, because I'm Kim and that's Jen, and we're Booze and Bourbon. Welcome back to Booze and Bourbon.
That's something that we can't do aloud right now due to the situation at hand.
Pandemic. Oh my God.
It's tattoo.
I'm within 3 feet. I'm definitely getting
You're actually within a foot,
virus.
so quarantine.
If I had to be stuck in a quarantine with you, things would be okay.
Be very entertaining.
It would be.
I would make sure it was like super entertaining actually the whole time. We would videotape it really and put it on YouTube.
I think our social media ratings would be kicked up a notch.
Yes.
And I want to say when a lot of this news started coming out that people needed to self-isolate and travel would become an issue and all this kind of thing, like I think it's okay to feel anxious.
But also don't stress yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need a lifetime of toilet paper to last you 2 weeks, you have a bigger problem. You should have already went to see your doctor already because there is a situation at hand that is way worse than the flu. So your butthole probably is rawer than I don't know what. Like that's just,
right.
That's a problem.
It's excessive. Yeah, so you guys obviously know what's going on this week. Everyone is freaking out about COVID-19 and that's okay. Definitely if you're within that demographic where it could be a sketchy thing. If I knew that I passed it to somebody else that couldn't handle the virus, I'd be very upset.
Right. So you just hang out with me.
Yeah.
Ryan.
Yeah.
And also we mentioned, we posted it one day on our Instagram site that bourbon kills off coronavirus. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, depending on what kind of proof you got, I'm sure it will. Anything will kill.
Get that heavy proof and like you're good. And you're also going to be super tingly and warm and probably not really care about your toilet paper situation. So you should just do that anyway.
The toilet paper situation. I still can't believe that's a thing. I'm so mind boggled by it all.
I mean, you still have socks. You still have dish towels. You still have face cloths, regular towels.
You have a bar of soap in your hand.
Right. That's it, Kim. Get in there. Get it done.
Anyway, guys, we've got a very cool episode for you today. We're talking from behind the cauldron.
Yes. And I was inspired to do an episode like this after I watched Sabrina on Netflix.
Which is a great show, actually. I expected it to be like really teeny bopper-ish.
Yeah, like I expected it to be very cheesy. And I mean, some of you might still find it cheesy, but it's not for what I thought. But they do talk about different types of witches, and it got me wondering about how many different kinds there actually are. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of different types of witches in the world today.
Yeah.
There are so many that it's almost hard to put each person practicing witchcraft into a box on a shelf. Mm-hmm. For most witches, witchcraft is seen as a skill set, and it's not necessarily a religion, which is great because this means that the practice of witchcraft is accessible to people of any spiritual background. Let's look at some of the types of witches you might encounter and what makes each uniquely different.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be a fantastic show.
Yes.
We are going to get into how witchcraft traditions have historical roots and such, but first we're going to talk about this lovely historical bourbon we have here in front of us.
Yes.
We were gifted these 2 Jim Beam cars, and they look like antique cars. This one is a blue and ivory, kind of like very boxy, square, kind of Cadillac-ish thing going on. And it was the Jim Beam 100-month recipe, and it was bottled in 1981. So she's old, but she is very, very smooth. I was surprised because I heard that when you open up these cars, it can go one of 2 ways. Mm-hmm. It can either be really oxidized and just taste disgusting and smell disgusting. But there can be other instances where it tastes like maple candy. And fortunately, we got the maple candy scenario. So it's really sweet. It's got a lot of vanilla, definitely maple, some good spices in there. But it is so smooth. And I am so happy for this bourbon.
I drank a lot of mine already, so there's only a tiny little sip left. But
There's a little bit more in the kitchen if you want to go grab some. Now that we've cracked open this lovely car, it's about that time for my favorite little game.
yes,
Would you rather?
absolutely.
So since we're talking about witches, would you rather be the type of witch who could summon a dark spirit
Mm-hmm.
and be able to do some actual spellbinding tricks?
Mm-hmm.
Or would you rather be the witch that was able to put all these herbs together and a little bit of alcohol and make this tincture and cure coronavirus?
I mean, I would be like super famous if I killed coronavirus right now.
Yeah, just with like a tincture, herbs and alcohol.
I would be all over the news. I would be on TMZ.
Yeah.
50 Cent would put me on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. He'd probably want to do a vitamin water with you.
Oh my God, that's what I need to do.
Collab.
50, if you're listening to our podcast, I've always wanted to be your best friend. So, and that's quoting your song, Best Friend.
I love that. I'm so glad that you put that out into the universe right now.
Thanks, 50. So, my question.
Yeah.
Keeping it with the witches. So, there are green witches that are kind of like more into like earthy type spells and things that relate to like weather and that type of thing.
Yes.
And then there are the ones that are more into spells, like based on like memory or like making you fall in love with somebody or making you do this, that, and the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather be the witch that can change our weather or the witch that could change like how someone's thinking and how someone's like with someone or if they're not with someone or like, yeah.
I feel like if you were into the latter side of witchcraft and that you had the ability to like change the way people felt or understand what they were feeling or like see their innermost thoughts and secrets, I feel like that would be a lot.
Yes.
And with that would come a lot of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You'd always be dealing with people like at their worst or at their best. Like it would be very emotional, highs and lows. But I think it'd be worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It probably would be.
I think I'd really appreciate knowing that kind of information. And I wouldn't need to tell anybody. I would just be very happy knowing everything that's going on in other people's minds.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Easy enough.
All right. So guys, after the break, we're going to get into today's main topic, which is all about witchcraft, the different types of witches, and basically behind the cauldron.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. And welcome back. As we were talking earlier about what today's main topic is, it's pretty exciting. We're going to go into witchcraft, the different types of witches, different beliefs. So I found a story on the internet that goes a little like this. It talks about a girl who recently found out that she was very in tune with witchcraft, wanted to dive a little bit further deeper into it. When she came out of the quote unquote closet, her mom was there for it. Mm-hmm. She was like, yeah, okay, let's talk. So it says, I have officially been practicing witchcraft since Halloween, completely in the broom closet. Today, during a moment alone, my mom and I were discussing the paranormal when she suddenly hesitates and says, you're going to judge me, but I think I'm a witch and that your great-great-grandma was one too. I was smiling because I felt so validated and she thought I was going to laugh at her. I told her about my own practice. I showed her my altar and tarot cards. She felt comfortable enough to tell me about her own experiences and about the great-great-grandmother that I never had a chance to meet. Turns out I have a secret family history of witchcraft that goes back several generations. The timing to learn this felt right, and I'm just so incredibly proud of my heritage. I've been instinctively praying to my ancestors for guidance and honoring them for a long time now, so this all feels like a sign. I just wanted to share. It's kind of interesting. So also to note, it seems that it doesn't matter if someone wants to practice witchcraft on their own or in a group, which is what everyone calls a coven. People choose to practice it in whatever way they feel most comfortable. It also seems that there's a lot of people out there who have been raised Christian and they are wondering how to comfortably have their own belief system, like to honor their past beliefs but accept the new ones at the same time. Therefore, this has brought out a lot of new research, and it seems that many Christian holidays and traditions have deep roots in paganism. So perhaps if you're wondering about diving into witchcraft on your own, you can do some research on it and see what you feel comfortable with. Honestly, there's a lot of information out there, which I found on the internet. There's a lot of groups on Facebook where you can ask questions, and there's a lot of communities within subreddits on Reddit as well. So if you're feeling inclined, you can dive right in.
Pagan religions worship multiple deities rather than a single god. Paganism is one of the oldest religions and includes all religions that are not Christian, Muslim, or Jewish, meaning paganism includes the Hindu, Buddhist, Taoist, Confucian, and American Indian religions, as well as all other nature-oriented religions. According to the 1998 Cambridge Fact Finder, paganism accounts for 50% of all religions. The word pagan actually stems from the Latin pagani or paganus, wording meaning hearth or home dweller, or more simply, country person. Those labeled as pagans were considered inferior to those living in cities. It didn't, however, mean that those people were bad. It wasn't until the 1450s that fear of witchcraft became more prevalent, and people began associating witchcraft and paganism with devil worship, evil hexes, and spells.
Yeah, there are many types of witchcraft, many of which overlap, and all of which can be defined in different ways by different people, but here are some rough guidelines for their designations. African witchcraft. There are many types of witchcraft in Africa. The Azande of Central Africa believe that witchcraft causes all types of misfortune. The gift of witchcraft, known as mangu, is passed from parent to child. Those possessing mangu aren't even aware of it and perform magic unconsciously while they sleep.
Appalachian folk magic. Those who practice witchcraft in the Appalachian Mountains see good and evil as two distinct forces that are led by the Christian god and devil, respectively. They believe there are certain conditions that their magic cannot cure. They also believe that witches are blessed with paranormal powers and can perform powerful magic that can be used for either good or evil purposes. They look to nature for omens and importance of the future.
There's also a ceremonial witch. In ceremonial witchcraft, also called ceremonial magic or high magic, the practitioner often uses specific rituals and invocations to call upon the spirit world. Ceremonial witchcraft uses as its base a blend of older occult teachings like Thelema, Enochian magic, and Kabbalah. Although information on ceremonial magic often seems to be limited, this is in due part to the need for secrecy within the community. In fact, many people who practice ceremonial witchcraft don't identify with the word witch at all. I like how it's kind of like kept under wraps.
Yeah, it's a secret. So green witchcraft, the hedge or the green witch. The hedge witch of old usually practiced alone and lived magically day to day, performing simple domestic actions that were infused with magical ideas and intentions. These practices are sometimes referred to as greencraft and are highly influenced by rural customs and folk magic. Similar to kitchen witchcraft, hedge witchery often focuses on the hearth and home as the center of magical activity, and the place where a hedge witch lives is designated as sacred space. Unlike kitchen magic, however, the focus of hedge witchcraft is on the interaction with the natural world, and that often expands outside the kitchen. A hedge witch typically spends the time working on herbal magic and might cultivate related skills like herbal knowledge of aromatherapy, A hedge witch doesn't just have jars of plants she probably grew or gathered them herself, harvested them, and hung them up to dry. She most likely has experimented with them to see how useful they are and kept track of the results for future reference. A green witch is very similar to a kitchen or cottage witch.
So there's also hereditary witchcraft. Hereditary witches believe in gifts of the craft that are with a witch from birth, having been passed down from generations before. There are numerous hereditary traditions of witchcraft, but by hereditary, we don't mean that the practices and customs are biologically inherited. These are typically small, familiar traditions in which beliefs, rituals, and other knowledge is handed down from one generation to the next, sometimes from mother to daughter or father to son, and outsiders are rarely included, even those who marry into the family. It's hard to guess how many hereditary witches there are because the information is generally kept within the family and not shared with the general public.
So the kitchen or cottage witchcraft that we just spoke of a minute ago, a kitchen witch or cottage witch practices magic around the hearth and home. The home is a sacred place, and the use of herbs is used often to bring protection, prosperity, and healing. Kitchen witches often follow more than one path of witchcraft.
Okay. Then there's the Pennsylvania Dutch hexcraft or powwow. When the Germans first arrived in Pennsylvania, Native Americans were there, so the term powwow to describe this practice may come from observations of Indian gatherings. Powwowing includes charms and incantations dating back to the Middle Ages, as well as elements borrowed from the Jewish Kabbalah or Christian Bible. Powwowing focuses on healing illnesses, protecting livestock, finding love, or casting or removing hexes. Powwowers consider themselves to be Christians endowed with supernatural powers. I like it.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
So traditional or folk witch. A traditional witch typically practices the folk magic of his or her ancestors or of the people in the nearby geographic area. Often they take a historical approach. They're using the magical practices and beliefs that were around long before Wicca existed, and they may have access to a wealth of information about spells, charms, talismans, and herbal brews that date back centuries. You'll find that those who practice traditional witchcraft or folk magic are usually pretty knowledgeable about the spirits of land and place in their area, as well as customs and folklore of their region. Many traditional witches use a blend of old beliefs and practices combined with modern tools and ideas. They contact spirits that are part of an unseen spirit world during rituals. Magic is more practical than ceremonial and focuses greatly on herbs and potions. This sect of witchcraft also has no law of harming anyone, but does believe in responsibility and honor. Hexes and curses, therefore, can be used in self-defense or for other types of protection.
All right, and then we get into the big bad Wicca. Not that it's big and bad, but it's just like it encompasses a lot of things.
Yeah.
So Wicca is one of the modern pagan religions that worships the earth and nature, and it is only about 60 years old. It was created in the 1940s and 50s by Gerald Gardner. Gardner defined witchcraft and a positive and life-affirming religion that includes divination, herb lore, magic, and psychic abilities. Wiccans can take oath to do no harm with their magic. Gardnerian or Alexandrian Wiccan. In traditional Wicca, which is one of many forms of modern witchcraft, practitioners can trace their lineage back to an unbroken line. Although not all witches are Wiccans, those two forms of British witchcraft are oath-bound traditions, which means that those who are initiated into them must keep their knowledge a secret. Gardnerian, is that it?
That's a tough word.
Gardner and Wiccans are witches whose tradition can be traced back to Gerald Gardner.
Most of those who call themselves witches today belong to the Wiccan religion. Wicca has no belief in a devil and does not subscribe to the Christian idea of hell. So the idea that modern witches worship the devil is nonsense. There are many conflicting definitions of Wicca and witch, and even modern-day witches don't all agree on how to define themselves and their religion. Most, however, call themselves witches and their religion Wicca. There are actually several Wiccan traditions now that have varying beliefs, all loosely based on the Gardnerian... Oh, wow, I can't say it either. Gardnerian ideals. Most of what we cover in this article is based on the Gardnerian tradition.
The Wiccan belief is that when witches become one with the deities through rituals, they become in tune with the overall life force or cosmic energy. This allows the witch to somewhat control that energy, meaning the energy from themselves and their environment, and direct it for personal change through magic. The theory also follows the scientific concept that all matter vibrates within its own energy. The speed of that vibration is dictated by the movement and the molecules that make up the object. Whether the object is solid or not is also determined by the movement of the molecules. According to the Book of Spellworks for Covens, energy from the witch's body also has a vibration, both a physical rate of vibration and a spiritual rate of vibration. During power-raising rituals, witches believe that the molecules from both their physical and spiritual sides meld together to increase their overall energy and create a pathway for energy to flow through them. Okay, so as I'm like really thinking about all of this, I'm like, I'm probably Wiccan, even though I was born and raised Christian. I totally believe in energy, and I do have my level 1 Reiki, and I have been witness to energy being moved through my own body when somebody else was doing this on me.
Yeah.
And I actually had an instance where my gallbladder was very blocked, and I had gone and gotten ultrasound. I went to go get an ultrasound, and when the time came that I had my ultrasound, they're like, there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, that's right. No, because I had a Reiki treatment that I could actually feel my gallbladder like dripping and draining. It was crazy.
See, now, I always knew there was something. I always knew there was something in there. I felt like you were very in tune with the the kitchen witch and the green witch. And then I was just like creating another, it's just more of
I think you might be more of the, I gotta go back here. Traditional or, no, wait.
Witch? No.
The Pennsylvania Dutch.
Oh, the powwow.
Yeah. Because like you're a Christian that's got supernatural powers.
True. All right, we'll go with that. Now that we've discussed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just felt like you were very in tune with the power part. Or not the powers, the energy part.
Yes.
So I feel like that is you.
But I also feel like I'm borderline empath, where I feel other people's emotions. So like if you were having a bad day and you were just like being completely honest with me about having a bad day, I would generally feel terrible.
The bad day as well.
And I would probably cry with you. Because I'm so sensitive to that stuff.
I feel like we've had this moment before.
We've had this moment. We have had this moment.
Yes.
That's what true friends are all about.
Exactly. So witches can either practice their craft in groups called covens or by themselves as solitaires. New members are welcomed into covens with a formal initiation ceremony. In the Gardnerian, there are 3 phases of learning, each of which lasts a year and a day. Covens generally have their own rules, procedures, and names for these phases, but they tend to fall into the following categories. 1, student/witch. 2, practitioner/priestess. 3, teacher/high priestess.
Okay.
Yeah. Once a new member has completed all phases, he or she is a full-fledged witch with the power to perform and participate in formal rituals.
So we're going to get into the tools. First, starting off with athame, or atham, which is known as knife. A knife isn't one of the traditional witches' props you can get from a costume shop, but it is an important part of many rituals. It is a double-edged knife with a blade about 6 inches long. It's not terribly sharp. It is used to mark the edges of the circle and to stir the salt and water that are used to consecrate or make sacred the circle. It is also sometimes used to carve symbols or words into candles. The knife's owner marks either the handle or the blade with his or her witchcraft name and stores it in a white container or both. The knife is also used in the great rite ritual, more on the great rite later, as a phallic symbol, representing one half of the union of God and goddess from which new life comes.
Okay. The bell. Some witches use a bell during rituals, but there is no official or required use of one. Some examples of when a bell might be rung is when the circle is opened or closed to invoke the god or goddess, or simply to signify when certain phases of the ritual are ending or beginning.
All right. And then, of course, we have brooms. Witches don't usually fly on brooms, although many do have them. They're used to purify an area of lingering energies, similar to the use of sage, before casting a circle. Circles are cast before any ritual.
So we have another knife, we'll say, bowline. The bowline is another knife used in Wiccan rites. In contrast to the athame, the bowline is very sharp and is usually made of copper. Its sole use is to cut herbs.
Nice. Okay, so then there's the Book of Shadows. It's essentially the witch's guidebook. It contains all of a particular witch's or coven's ritual and spell information. It is the written record of everything the witches in that coven need to know, such as descriptions and explanations of all of the Sabbats.
Candles. One of my favorite things.
I love them too.
When a circle is cast for a ritual, there are 4 quadrants representing north, south, east, and west. Quarter candles of specific colors are used. North is green to represent earth, south is red to represent fire, east is yellow to represent air, and west is blue to represent water. The candles are placed at the perimeter of the circle. There are also 3 candles used on the altar. The color of these candles represents the ritual being performed.
The cauldron. The big guns are out now.
Making some soup.
The cauldron is a necessary part of witches' paraphernalia. While many years ago, cauldrons were a part of every home, including Ed Gein's. Now they're seldom seen except at Halloween or as a yard decoration. But cauldrons with magical powers go back to the myth of the Celtic goddess, I can't even say that name, mythic Celtic goddess Ceremonial, whose cauldron represented the cycle of birth, renewal, rebirth, and transformation. Witches today often burn small fires, balefires, or incense in their cauldrons. The cauldron can also represent the womb during the Great Rite ritual, which calls upon the union of the god and goddess from which new life comes.
The chalice.
I love the chalice. It's my favorite.
We both have one, I think, already.
Yeah.
A chalice, which is a cup, is used in ceremonies to represent the female principle of water. The chalice can also be used in place of the cauldron in performing the Great Rite, as well as in a cake and ale rite where a cup of wine is blessed by the high priest and passed from member to member in a circle.
Okay, so clothing. Clothing is optional for most.
Yeah. Get naked. Be one with the earth.
There are certain moments where I choose not to say anything just to keep letting you go because it just keeps getting better and better. Woo! Yeah!
Wherever you be, let the air be free. Just roaming around in there, just up in the crevices.
I'm crying now. So although most covens require that everyone is in agreement to going skyclad, aka naked, before anyone does. Otherwise, witches wear long hooded robes of varying, usually dark colors.
I'm going to be the witch with the very bright nipple tassels.
Whoa!
And also a tail. Maybe some ears. I don't know.
I've got just the tail for you downstairs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's called baton. An altar baton is a plate or disc of either metal or wood with a pentagram design on it. It is used on the altar to hold the tools needed for the ceremony and to act as a focal point.
Okay, so clearly...
Basically, it's just like a nice eyepiece for your stuff to sit on.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Exactly. Then you're also going to need the pentagram or the pentacle. It's a 5-pointed star enclosed within a circle. The upright pentacle or pentagram, 1 point up, 2 points down, is a widely recognized symbol of witchcraft. The points represent earth, fire, water, air, and spirit. And the circle represents the goddess that allow the energy of the pentagram to be focused. It is symbolic of the idea of bringing together spirit and earth.
Sage sticks. Before a ritual, the area must be purified. Sage is often used to cleanse the area of unwanted energies. When burned, the sage creates a thick grayish smoke.
And make sure that Kim's husband, Ryan, emits the house.
Right. That as well. We've done it a few times now.
Not a fan. All right. The salt container. Another purifying agent is salt. The salt is usually in either a seashell or a glass dish. Salt is mixed with water to represent the elements of the earth and water in order to consecrate the circle.
A staff or sword. Witches can use a staff like they would a wand. The staff is usually shoulder height. Some witches choose to use a sword rather than a thame to mark the boundaries of the circle.
An incense burner. Damn, I got one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Incense represents the element of air, so when it's burned, it also represents fire, both of which are used to purify the area or the tools being used. Okay.
The wand. Many witches use wands. Wands represent fire and the life force of the witch. It is a symbol of power, wisdom, and healing. The wand, like the sword, staff, and a theme, can be used to cast a circle. It may also be used to direct energy during a spell.
Okay, so then also you're going to need a water container. Like, I feel like you need to write this down if you're going to start doing it, because there's a lot of things. The water container is used in the consecration of the circle and can be any type of container as long as it's large enough to hold 3 pinches of salt and then stirred with a knife. Water is another purification agent. So now that we've had a peek into the world of modern Wiccan witches, sadly, Jen and I are not witches.
No.
But I personally think the whole idea of being one, and being one with the earth and the water and the trees and the gardens and the herbs and tinctures, making all those things, I think it's all badass.
I remember when we spoke on our other episode about, just with Mi'kmaq and a lot of those religions and everything, where they always want to put their bare feet on the ground to feel one with earth. I think that would correlate a lot with this, because you're trying to be as close with nature and in tune with it as you can.
Agreed. And I think there's also something to be said about like these ancient rituals and sort of religions, because they've been here first. They're like not really too concerned with what's going on with the Pope right now. Hi, Ernie. Are you a witch too? Are you a little witch?
I just got a cat tail in my face by a black cat crossing in front of us.
And look how beautiful he is.
Way to go.
What's crazy is he's never wanted to be in the quote-unquote studio with us.
No.
And he wants to be here right now.
All right.
He's feeling it. So, guys, I just got smoked in the face with a cattail. And that pretty much concludes today's episode. So thank you so much for listening. I hope that you were able to gain some knowledge about witches.
And maybe, like, if you want to start, there's obviously lots of verbiage out there, lots of books you can read.
Yep.
The Book of Shadows, you want to just bust that out and get your level 1 witches.
Might as well.
And you just need a lot of tools. So get a really hefty tool belt.
Budget for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lots of things in there.
But I think it's really cool. And it's really interesting that we did a little deep dive into that. So thanks, Jen, for finding all that info. Greatly appreciated. And if you want to find out more about Booze and Bourbon, like what we're currently up to amidst the coronavirus, definitely check us out on social media. Jen, where can people find us?
I mean, we were on CTV yesterday.
No, we weren't.
Oh, that wasn't us, no. We were fighting over toilet paper with these other people.
Probably.
It's a big deal. No. So we are on Insta, Booze and Bourbon. We are on Facebook, Booze and Bourbon the podcast. We are on basically any provider of podcasts. You can find us there. You can also go on and give us a lovely rating to show us how much you love us, which obviously is a lot. So
it's the best way to support the podcast. If you want to give us 5 stars, give us a little shout out, definitely give us a review. We'd very much appreciate that.
We also like when we get emails from people with stories that they have of their own and or would you rather questions.
Yeah, we actually have a really great story to share with you guys for the next episode. So make sure you stay tuned and you download our episode next Friday. It's going to be a good one.
Yepers.
Bye for now, guys.
Bye, guys.
Booze and Bourbon is part of the ABV network. For more information or to advertise on the show, please head over to abvnetwork.com. Thanks for listening and cheers.
This has been a Steve Akeley production.